My name is Mark Whitaker, and I'm going to spend the next 4 or 5 minutes just demonstrating how to use vWall with multi-facilitator access. This is particularly relevant if you're facilitating an event remotely on Zoom or any other sort of WebEx channel to facilitate small groups, breakout groups, maybe wanting to ask different questions or on a cycle, but with facilitator control. So if I just jump straight into the product, for those who've not seen it before, it's a case of logging in via the vWall.org website address with your credentials. And this will bring you to the main sort of home page. And from here, it's important that if we're setting up a session that does require multi-facilitators, then we need to add those facilitators to the account to start with. And this is done simply by clicking on the settings here and my account. And then if we select the subscriptions tab, it's here where we can simply add an extra user to the subscription. Now, it's important that we can only do that, of course, if your subscription type is high enough to accommodate extra users. I've set this one up for 10 users, but just to demonstrate, if you did have a subscription large enough, it would be a case of typing in the facilitator's email and their name, and that would add that person to the subscription, and they in turn would receive an email with their logon details. So we can add as many as the subscription allows us to add here for co-facilitation purposes. We go back to the home page now. We're now ready to set up our multi-facilitator event. And this starts by granting access to all the facilitators to a single project. So if we add a project here, and we'll call that shared facilitation project, we can add facilitators, named facilitators, access to the content within this project. We do this by simply clicking on this icon, and where we've added extra names, we can choose from the drop-down menu and add those to this project. And you can see that we've added that extra user to this project because this number here in the icon has gone up incrementally by 1. So now, once we've set up that shared facilitation project, we can then, for users of vWall who had used the product before, it's just as simple as clicking on New Session. And if we keep with the same naming convention, this is now the actual session that will be running as a group or breakout groups. And there's just a couple of things to be mindful of. It's important that we set this up so that participants can switch topics themselves, and that's easy to do by just clicking on the title of the session, and that allows us access to this settings tab. And from there, we can make sure that that's clicked, or if it's not clicked, we can change that simply by the little slide there and storing as default. Now, this is important because if you're moving around from group to group, and you've got multiple facilitators, one of the facilitators, if they change the view of which wall that they're analysing, that can also change the view of the participants. So giving participants the option to change topics themselves will mitigate that any interference that there may be. The last thing to really consider then is how you want to set up the different breakout sessions. I'm just going to type a couple of options in here. So you could ask one group, what processes do we need to improve? And that could be tagged with group 1. And similarly, we could have another topic, what systems need to change, which could be the group 2 question, and so on and so on and so on. And then from there, once we get once we're ready to go and we've designed the breakout strategy and the questions that we want to ask, then we can see now that as we look at that session that's ready to run, we can see that those 2 questions have been asked, those 2 topics, and then we can start the session. And that's pretty much it. So now the facilitators that we've granted access to can access these very same walls at the same time. So they can look at this wall and start to analyse any data that comes in here. And simultaneously, the second facilitator in this example could look at this wall specifically and look at the data and content and analyse that as the data comes in.